Camden. This is Bohl. He is a Pepperdine employee.
I was when I left.
And Mohyeddin, everybody call him Mo. That's our thing from Arizona Law. And today we're going to talk about room and course scheduling systems and the differences between the two and how wonderful they are or aren't. So, is everyone here because you have nowhere else to go, or because you thought we were actually going to give you pizza? Yeah. Okay, sorry. So
There it is.
there you go. Share that between 30 of you, and that won't be good. I hope you like anchovies. So what we're talking about is not only course scheduling, but room scheduling, and then the differences between the two. So I'm wondering, does anyone now use any kind of a software package to do room scheduling, room reservations? Raise your hands.
What are you using?
Meeting room booking system. Microsoft Exchange.
Oh, that's it.
Meeting room manager.
Meeting room manager.
Now, does anyone have anything that ties into a course system where you would actually import courses and optimize schedules?
Sort of.
How?
Well, we do have Vanderpool. We pull off the Oracle. We pull in all the course scheduling, and we do not automatically jump into the meeting booking system. There's still a manual step there, a semi-manual step.
So does everybody else pretty much use a manual approach? And manual would mean Excel. Okay, not colored Post-it notes.
Big board.
Big board.
Dartboard.
Dartboard. Ooh, I like that idea.
Precision. Who does it? Do you have? Is it like a dean level person that does that?
Registrar.
Registrar.
Science.
I'm really interested in hearing other people's ideas. We don't have any answers, by the way. Sorry. I have a lot of questions.
What?
So our associate dean and the registrar, they make the schedule and they determine who goes where. I use meeting room manager for, and I do physically put the course schedule in, and then I use it for every other reservation I need to make in the building for meetings, faculty meetings, student works things, events. But I manually put the class schedule in to meeting room manager after it's already been determined by the registrar and associate dean.
So is it fair to say that pretty much everybody, like nearly 100% of the discretion is done by a human being?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we're going to talk today about is, I don't know why Phil put that in there, actually what happens with the scheduling, who's making those decisions, and then we have a couple of select tools. We each have one for doing the actual scheduling. But we want to talk about exactly what we're talking about when we say course scheduling, which is not necessarily just saying, hey, we want to take a room for a trial advocacy and throw it in, room 110. Oh, there's enough people there, whatever. We want to actually look at what the best fit is for not just that particular room class, but for all of the rooms and for all the classes, and be able to optimize that based on lots of different features. Room scheduling itself isn't as needed in terms of working with other people, with getting them their preferences in the rooms and things. So we just want to make sure that there's a difference there.
Again, the definition is for the purposes of this exercise only. Feel free to use your own definition. So, looking at this, my first question is, who are your customers? Who are you serving? And then we're going to hit who are your users, and I'm distinguishing customers from users. Really, they're kind of the same people in different roles, different times. Constraints are always fun, and then the tools we can use. On the customers, we can roll probably all those out at once. We've got our students, and they want parking spaces when they show up to class. They want some time in between classes. They want to make sure they can graduate. The usual things. Time to earn money, that's another issue. I think it's an ABA rule that you can only work 20 hours a week, something like that. So we don't want to give students too much free time to encourage bad activity, which would be earning money, right? The faculty, prep time between classes, you want to guarantee that. Office hours, freedom to write, freedom to speak, other places. Then the administrators with the academic goals, the academic policies, offering courses in groups, those kinds of things. And then finally, something that we're learning a lot about at Pepperdine is event planning. And we have event planners and guests on campus for different things, being able to accommodate them for special events. So those are the customers. We head over to users, and I define the users as the people that are actually using this course scheduling, whatever it is. You know, who is making the decisions? Who is, if you have a program, who's using the program? Is the dean doing all this stuff? In our case, we have a guy who retired as a senior partner from Latham & Watkins, who's at one point the chairman of the Board of Regents of our institution. Now, he spends 5 weeks locked in his office with Post-it notes doing the schedule. So we take somebody that's a really high-powered attorney and we put him in a role that's really kind of, I don't think it's fair, frankly. I think that we should be able to help him with that. And at one time, we used a piece of software that did this stuff, almost all of it for the dean. And it's personnel changes. And I was talking to somebody and decided that maybe I should take a closer look at it because it was out of my purview. Now I guess I'm volunteering to bring it back. So that's how this all happens. It's a wonderful thing. Nobody else wants to do it. But who is going to exercise the discretion to tell a faculty member, a senior faculty member, when they're going to be teaching? And that's, that's a tough call. If we can build rules into a system and then put the dean's stamp on it, it might be better than sticking them in a room with Post-it notes. But faculty, same kind of thing. Students are users because they're requesting places. I mean, you have students probably requesting a room for student events, those kinds of things. And then the university programs, every once in a while we'll find out, guess what? There's a program in the building today. Oh, and they're going to need all the support. And, oh, by the way, it starts in 30 minutes. You guys are ready for that, right? Because the technology's already in the room. Just have to turn it on. No one else has that experience?
I think we all have that experience.
Oh, yes.
That's why there's silence.
I made a note. As technologists, we exist to provide support. Courteous, timely, and professional support. Sounds good, huh? Anyway, what we got? Constraints.
So there's a couple of really easy stuff, right? I mean, if you're going to talk about the facilities that you have, right, you want to talk about if you have a first-year class that's going to have 200 students, you got to put them in a room with 200 seats, right? You also have to worry about the orientation of the room. If you have a professor that prefers to just lecture out rather than a seminar room where you're kind of like in a group, you want to have discussions. And then the distance too as well. If you have a large campus and you have a law school in one side and then maybe a lecture hall on the other side that you might use sometimes, you can't schedule back-to-back classes with 5 minutes in between for that faculty member. They're going to have to schlep 20 minutes over that way. Unless you're Boulder and you have a bike and can bike over, which is very nifty.
So you get a bike parking space.
Ooh, reserved bike parking.
Do you encumber bike spaces with your course scheduling? That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, so you also need to worry about your faculty, right? I don't know how everybody works. I know at Rutgers we have a lot of senior faculty that are able to, because of constraints, or will, depending on their needs or desires, only teach certain days, only teach in the evening, only teach in the morning, only teach after 9, before 11, because they have kids and they have to drop them off at daycare first. But even though our class session starts at 8:50, they can't start at 8:50, they have to start at 9 o'clock. I'm not bitter. So those kinds of things as well. Also the kinds of equipment that they're going to be using. If you have a professor that always uses PowerPoint and always wants a projector or a TV or something to be able to display that, you need to make sure that they're in a room that is available to them. Not all facilities have presentation capabilities, everywhere.
One of the things about faculty is there's odd things, and obviously, if you have a senior person in your, should I not say odd? It's too clear. Special needs. Professor X refuses to be next to Professor Super Loud, in the same class period, because the walls aren't thick enough, and it disturbs their class, and they much prefer someone else experience that, because I have more tenure than the rest of these guys. I should have this space. And I read about a professor who refused to be scheduled into a first-year section with this other professor because he didn't want to compete, or he or she did not want to compete with super popular professor for the student sections. Those kinds of things that, how are you going to employ that kind of discretion automatically? It's difficult. Set up some kind of a conflict management scheme to have people avoid each other. And we're on the less obvious or not as obvious.
Yes.
Subtleties of the scheduler. I was talking to the man who wrote ScheduleWhiz, which is the application that we used at Pepperdine for a number of years. I said, how do you get people to keep using it? Because there's a bit of a ramp up. There's a lot of data points you need to put in this thing. And he said, well, really what it comes down to is you need a smart person to keep it going. And if you don't have a smart person to keep it going, it's not going to keep it going. So instead of saying the weaknesses or the deficiencies of the scheduler, instead of the subtleties.
And then time as well. I mean, if you're going to have a class, lots of classes, if you have a huge law school, it's going to take hundreds of hours to do a schedule, and then by the time you're done with the fall and you start the fall semester, the next week you're going to have to start on the spring schedule and start contacting faculty again and making sure that the times are okay with them. And in the spring it'll be different, and who's teaching in the summer and who's not, et cetera, et cetera. So it seems like it's such a full-time job that our goal was to try to figure out a way to do it so that the administrators can exert their authority, saying, oh, well, I'd rather have this class first, so put torts first and then have con law second or whatever, but still have the administrative 90% of the work be done by someone or something that will make it easier.
I spoke with our former Associate Dean for Academics about bringing this product back, and she was the one who actually brought it to Pepperdine. And we were talking about who could make this go. Who knows all the subtleties of the faculty and the scheduling, magic that has to happen to make sure the first-year classes are stuck in the least favorable time slots in the upper division courses, and the more favorable time slots, and balance that against the different programs that we have, different course groupings we have. Came down to two different people at the law school that could probably bring all of that stuff together in one place. And she was one of them, and she's got two administrative roles, teaching a full load, and the other guy's on sabbatical. So it's one of these things where time is a killer thing, but also the institutional knowledge is really essential, as I'm sure everybody knows. And the random acts of kindness, kindness in quotes. Do you have distributed access, or multiple people have access to your scheduling system as far as counter? And does that help you or harm you?
The different people who have access all know not to step on each other's toes. They know whose rooms are whose. Anyone can view it, but only a handful of editors can change it, but they know who does which room.
Me too, is that I am they can do it and they do it, and it's like tentative until they check with me. Because I have things pending that they don't know about, but other people can't.
And you're mean too.
Determined. Firm.
Years ago, we had this thing they called the grid. It was this magic thing. And it was a spreadsheet printed out and on a clipboard next to the dean's secretary. And then one day somebody got this killer idea. the grid on a shared drive on the network, and then anybody can look at it. Anybody can modify it, and some wonderful things happened to the grid over time that prompted us to go ahead and put an online web-based calendar with workflow and all this other stuff on it. But there were people that wanted to hoard and keep the grid. And so we had several different versions of the schedule as far as room reservations running simultaneously, and that was a special time of AV support. And this is when we didn't have projectors in every classroom, and we were running around with carts, and it was a special time. So those random acts of kindness, somebody helping out a club, a student saying, hey, we're going to have a guest speaker, can you put that on the schedule? And it would go on the paper grid and never make it anywhere else. So no one else has ever experienced that. Or a faculty member forgetting to mention to somebody that they have a guest speaker coming in from, say, New York, and somebody's class is going to get bumped. This is where we get the hot pizza in the classroom. This just happened recently. Communications are essential. My boss, teaching a class on election law, shows up, there's pizza in his classroom. Turns out the faculty are having a small group of faculty are having a guest speaker, got the pizza there already, they're all ready to go, and students show up, the professor shows up to teach a class, and we've got something else going on at the same time. That was a special day.
Did they fight over the room or the pizza?
Yes.
Everything was resolved amicably, and everybody is fine now. Turns out it was my boss who missed communication.
We never told him that.
Just did.
And so one of the things that we have to work on is not necessarily the actual course scheduling itself, taking what rooms should be at what times, or what classes should be at what times and what rooms, but also communicating that to your users, to your students, faculty, and staff in a way that they are made aware of what's going on in a timely manner without necessarily holding it up. I know at Rutgers we had up until 2 years ago when we put in our scheduling system, we had a single book in the associate dean's office that just stood there. If somebody needed to book a room, they would call his secretary. She would write it down, but God forbid if the secretary wasn't there to write something down, then the law school halted immediately. So it's very important to make sure that the system that we're going to be talking about is kind of like school-wide is available. So we have a couple of suggestions. This is by no means an exhaustive list. We only have 3. We had 5, but there were 2. There was one called Lantiv that was a high school, basically, program that said it was for higher ed. It wasn't for higher ed. And then we had another one called Mimosa, which I wanted just for the simple reason that we could say, hey, we're having hot pizza and mimosas, and then say, oh, no, sorry, it's the program. But that was pretty much bad, too. So we have a couple of things here.
Excuse me, is it the Lantiv that was developed in Israel?
Yes.
Yeah. We actually bought 3 licenses. It's pretty expensive. We bought 3 licenses about 3-4 years ago. To make it work better, you need to program it in a better way, right? Did you try it first?
It's free now.
Is it?
It's free, yeah, absolutely.
And worth everything.
Maybe there's some other versions, but
The thing is, the version that is free, you can practically do everything, and there are limitations. Like, I think you cannot print. There is a catch. You cannot do certain things because that was put out by a couple of programmers from Israel, and even after we bought it, there was a problem because the printout that generates doesn't align the rows and columns well, and I have to manually copy all those things
into our system, yeah. And one of the things that I found, at least in the version that they have available now, is that it will only do block scheduling. If you do not work within your 8 or 10 or 12 periods in a day, which didn't fit for us, it just doesn't work.
What was that?
Lantiv. Yeah. So the 3 that we're going to be talking about today, EMS Campus is a DEA program, ScheduleWhiz by Phillip, and then Mo has their own in-house system from Arizona Law that we'll be able to talk about. So just to try to give you, like I said, we're not necessarily recommending any of these three programs. We're just saying that these are the three examples of the kinds of things that you need to look for when you're picking a scheduling software, and your mileage may vary. So, oh, and the fourth thing, right, is doing it yourself with a big whiteboard and just kind of faking it. Okay, so EMS Campus, pixels are kind of small. EMS is a system developed in the United States, actually in Colorado, about 10 miles that way, I think. And the idea is that, at least at Rutgers, we have an EMS system for scheduling for the campus. Just they're doing their basic room reservation systems. So I guess 5 or 6 years ago, I think it's when they came out with this, their academic scheduler came out to tie into their room reservation systems for higher ed so that you didn't have to do this manual kind of scheduling. It's supported for Windows 2000 or higher. The problem with that is that you have to have an EMS enterprise server already in place, which all that stuff is very, very expensive for a campus-wide kind of thing. And if you don't have it in your campus, it's may or may not be cost effective for you to have in your just in the law school itself. But if you do have EMS, and I know a lot of schools do, it's a great thing. The price for the system itself, I couldn't actually get an actual quote. He told me between $1,000 and $4,000 for the system for a year. So, again, that's really up to how customizable you want to make it. What it does offer is a Windows-based program that will help you do the scheduling, and then push that out onto their enterprise server, which will do integrate back into ERP systems or SIS, whatever you have. So you can pull all of your course data out, have the campus scheduler schedule it for you based on some preferences, and then send it back out to your ERP system to go through the university or banner or wherever you need to go to. One of the main things with this system is that it's set up to be very distributed. So, for example, if you wanted to put this into a law school setting, you would have your career or your legal writing people, right, try to develop their kind of template schedule where if they didn't have to interact with anybody, these are the classes we would have, and this is the times and the dates that we would want to have them. And then you would give access to EMS to someone to do the upper level writing courses, someone to do the other first year courses and things, and you'd have a distributed system, and then the EMS Campus main program would come back to the administrative dean or whoever does your academic scheduling, and then they could play with the settings. What it doesn't do is do like faculty preference kinds of things, say like, oh, well, I only want to teach at night, or I only want to teach in the morning. But what it does is push off that kind of stuff so that you don't have one person talking to 50 faculty. You have 10 people speaking to 10 faculty each, or 5 or whatever. And then that way the system will kind of distribute the work, and then the main dean that's getting paid gobs and gobs of money can actually take an hour or two and put the schedule to bed the way it should be and move things around. So that's a very good feature that isn't necessarily part of anything else I've seen. It also hooks into some of EMS's other things about posting schedules online and having online calendaring and room reservations and things. So like I said, if you are an EMS campus, this is a great thing to do. It also has APIs for getting data in and out of the system. So if you want to integrate with some kind of a digital signage system for putting signs up in classrooms or in lobbies and things, it integrates with that stuff as well. You can also have external events be pushed into it by some other programs if you have other issues that you want to, or other programs you want to have scheduled. I could do that as well. But like I said, it doesn't really have a faculty input kind of a variable. It just requires the distributed users of those departments to be able to talk to their faculty and then come together.
Excuse me.
Yes?
When the initial times and dates are locked, who can make those changes for the empty spaces?
The preference is given to the master administrator, I guess, they can either change whatever they want, or they can send the schedule back to that person at legal writing and say, you need to change this because I don't want all your classes in the morning. So you have to have them, some vice versa, whatever. Pass the work back off to them, let them do their thing, and then come back and
So it'll update when the schedule.
right. And then you have the option of, you don't actually schedule, you can make the schedule, the schedule that isn't available yet, you can make that available to only certain people so they can check it before it actually gets posted and published online and all the rooms become unavailable and things like that. Any questions about EMS?
This one, like you said, some profs might want to teach in the morning, some people don't want to teach soon after lunch because students might be sleepy, and so they have their own preference. But do you have a way of, based on the, if you want to give some space for the seniority and everything, can you allocate one professor's request as priority one and make that one as fixed and then work with the rest of that?
Not in EMS, no. With the idea being that you would distribute the interaction with the faculty. So the chair of the legal writing department would talk to their 5 or 10 faculty members and in her head manually do that kind of stuff and then submit the schedule. So it's distributing the work so that you don't have one dean sitting in a room for 5 weeks writing the schedule, which hopefully makes it easier for everything to come together. But you do have issues with that because if all the legal writing classes are set first, third, and fifth period, and all of some tours class, something else that a first year would take are on the same things, you don't know that until they come together, and so I'm sure there's conflicts at that point as well. So I'm not saying this is the best way to do it. I'm just saying this is what this does.
Yeah. Because you said you have experience of used LandTube. On the LandTube screen, you can drag one class, and then it will tell you whether you can put it in or what are the conflicts for that time slot. So do you have a similar one on this one too? Or?
It will, if for example, legal writing has finished their section of the schedule, and the third year person, whoever is doing the third year classes, starts doing the schedule, they will be told, you have a conflict. You can't have these classes on this side, and that, you'll be notified. But it's not as seamless as some of the other systems where it's all done by one person, but you don't get that kind of integration. Okay.
Hey, ScheduleWhiz is the product that we got probably almost 10 years ago, maybe right at 10 years ago. The developer's name is Gary Thompson, and he comes out of Cornell's hotel management school. And when we first got it, our dean, Shelley Saxer at the time, worked directly with Gary to kind of modify that, because she knew a little bit about course scheduling. I think she'd done it sometime previous to that. And wanted to find a piece of software to help go through that process. The product's changed a bit in the time since we got it back then. But I'm not going to give you a demo of the actual application, but I want you to see kind of how many different things you can do with this. On this screen, I don't know if you can see very well, this is a picture of the program course groups. So if you have like a legal research and writing or series of courses that everybody has to take, in this case, this is the first year section C. And so all of these classes are going to be attended by the same students, with the exception of the breakout legal research and writing discussion groups. So you're not going to want to ever schedule a conflict within this program group, within this course group. And you can pick and weigh the different times of day. This graph across the bottom is that's the available scheduling area. So our first class in this case, I think, is at 7 in the morning, and then we're done by 10 p.m. Now, obviously, we're not going to schedule that late in the day, and this is just an exemplar. But you can kind of see that I can go in and set the limits on the number of hours these students will be in class in this group in a given week or in a given day. And just a little background also on the cost of this the quote for our school, our size, is the price is based on the number of courses you're offering in a given term, the number of computers that it's going to be loaded on, because it runs on a local box. It's a local footprint. It doesn't run on a server. And what's the other variable? Oh, number of years. So it's years, number of computers, and however many courses you're doing. And for us, we have about 300 courses a semester. I think that's course units. A little under $3 grand per year. And with this presentation, if it comes off looking good, Gary, I hope you give us a killer price for next year. And you can buy a 3-year license, multiple year license, you can buy an indefinite license, and that's costs a little bit more. I think we've only run it on 1 or 2 PCs at a time, sharing the same data file. And it's not a client server application. You're sharing the same file, so you're not going to have it open in 2 places at once. Next screen.
So you said if it is on a local PC, only one person can run
Edit
it
it
at
at one
a
time.
time.
Yeah. Now you can import tables from your SIS. You can import all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, the way I plan to take a crack at this is to get a bunch of exported data, have one of our staff load it into the system, and then sit down with the appropriate person and go through and set the different priorities and preferences. And it'll take us several weeks to do that, I expect, just because of the accessibility that I have to that person in question. That's because it's several weeks of straight work. On this one, this is they're so small. This is the course screen. So this is a given course. I can set, first I can check, this is offered this term. This is offered this term. Valid room. So you can say this room is not any good for this class. Trial practice, you're going to want something with a jury box probably because you're talking to the jury. Small group of people, you don't want to stick them in a 140 seat classroom. So you can pull those out so they'll never be combined. That course will never be assigned to that class or to that room. And allowable timing. One of the things we noticed, our courses start at different times throughout the day. We don't always have like you call it block scheduling. You know, we don't have classes that start at 8 and then 9 and then 10. We have 8, 8:15, 8:30, maybe 8:35, you know, on the same day. And you can set up the different times, starting times that this computer can select from based on, you know, what you have in your facility. This program can pick. And then the valid meeting links. Another interesting thing about block scheduling, if you've got a 3-unit course, you can meet for 3 1-hour classes, or 2 1.5-hour classes, or 1 3-hour class. If you have a 3-hour class, you're going to have a break, hopefully, right? Something to get a Snickers bar and a glass of water or soda. This thing will figure that out. You can say, oh, we can do 3 1-hour classes, we can do 2 90-minute classes, or we can do a full 3-hour class with, you know, however many breaks you want in it. And then we'll pick the appropriate room, appropriate time in the schedule. If you have 2 or 3 classes that are, or 2 or 4 hopefully classes that are 90 minutes or 80 minutes, you can schedule them back to back, so you don't take up, you know, 6 hours. You can take up 3 hours. Does that make sense? It's like an 80-minute class, and then right after that's another 80-minute class. So you're not breaking up everybody else's scheduling opportunities within that time period. I had to read that over about 3 times to get it. Sorry if I'm not communicating it well. But I was excited about that in my own nerdy way. But there's a lot of boxes you can check. Go ahead and ask that one. This one is daytime combinations. If you don't want your first-year students to meet at 8 o'clock more than 3 times in a week, you can set that in here. If you don't want, if you don't want any classes to meet in any given kind of pattern, this is where you can set the patterns. Go ahead, click. This is the faculty one. This is the one that is most interesting to me. Because this is where you can say, so-and-so gets 100% preference for whatever they're doing. So in our case, if our dean, who has a crazy schedule, has agreed to teach a course, we're going to put him up, maybe not all the way to 100%, maybe we'll bump him down to 90%, but he'll have that kind of preference for whatever it is that he's going to be doing. And the system will automatically weight that. Also, you can see at the bottom the big red zone. This is the actual professor's information. He is an adjunct professor, only teaches at night, and he's only available certain times. So his class meets one time a week, which is not unusual for an adjunct. But kind of give you an idea, the red zone is something that a faculty member can actually fill out a form, either a paper form or online through the system, and it will encumber their time appropriately. So we have the priority level 1 to 100 for requests, and I think by default everybody's set at 50, and you can set the default. And the daily free time, maximum daily work span, no more than 16 hours, which is the default. And minimum overnight time between courses. You don't want somebody teaching at 9 p.m. and then coming back for a 7 a.m. course. Maybe that wouldn't be wonderful. Scheduled weekly workload units. You can set all these different parameters. And now Mo's got his customized application suite. I'm going to use this.
That's the work too. Okay, my name is Mohyeddin Abdulaziz. I'm the Director of IT at Arizona Law. We have a completely integrated system, and by that we all our web application, if you will, are developed and they talk to each other. They integrate. What you're looking at is our homepage, and our homepage has it's both functions as the public homepage, and also there are some intra functions too. We use called Fusion as our web application development environment. And we developed everything that I will show you this afternoon. Two things you need to do that. You need some knowledge of database. In our case, we use Microsoft SQL and Access databases. And you use some web application development software, which we use called Fusion. And the idea is that when we started developing, and we started developing these about 10 years ago, when these things were really not much known, but we wanted people to use the browser as their navigational tool rather than developing some other kind of interface. And Code Fusion was 1.0 then, and it was very. If you go back to the archives of Kali, I presented on that some time ago. What's this new thing? Okay. Anyway, if we look at this at the home page here, I want to start. That is everything that you see here, like events and academic programs, career services. For example, OCI, job postings. All of these are developed in the same way. Faculty bios are also developed that way. Let me show you just in the output of what we have. For example, if we have a course schedule here, this is our course schedule. So whatever we do in the background automatically gets reflected on the course schedule when we schedule a course. If for example, if you click on the person here, you will get the faculty page. Whoever is teaching that course, you can see this one here. Okay, we go back. I can see that. If you click on here, this goes to, it shows what is called the course description, whatever information about the course. Now, how does all of this happen? It happens, close this out, okay. Okay, while I am here, let me show you, this is a view of a faculty view of what we call forums or Arizona law forums. Okay, here what you see here on top are general functions, but also here you see the faculty and their courses. Okay, and for example, if we go to this course here, okay, our session has expired. Okay, we go back and look at, so this is our CMS, if you will, okay, that has everything. They post course materials, they have student interaction here, they have class lists, they can look at their class lists, okay, and they have the students and their photos in here, and so on and so forth. So that is all in one. How does this happen? Because we have, that is, we integrate the courses with the faculty who teach them, with the student registration, and all of that in one thing. Now, this is a student view. It's the same thing, just like the faculty, except that it shows only their courses that they are enrolled in. And also they have access to for example, to room reservations, just like anybody else. That's not, they don't actually reserve a room, well, they request to reserve a room. And somebody has to approve that. Okay, now here is where all of this happens. Okay, this is the backbone of our environment. Okay? And the responsibility of all of this is the Office of the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. Okay? She and her staff is responsible for, faculty, courses, schedules, all of that stuff. And everything happens from this one screen. Okay? So in here they maintain the faculty, and the basic information. Whatever they do here, okay, gets reflected on that is as far as the basic information. Once they enter a new faculty member here, automatically the basic screen for their bio page is created, like who they are, and so on and so forth. And then the web developer has other functions in which they fill other information about that faculty member. And here in the courses, okay, I need to go back to, this is the one, I'm using here localhost, but I should be using this new computer didn't have everything in it. So we go to to the real thing here. Okay? So when they're working on courses, we have a course master list that doesn't change from one semester to another. It gets added to. But when we are doing scheduling, okay, the first thing that we need to tell the system is that is what semester we're going on, we'll be working on. So we select, for example, for doing here, we select this semester, okay, and so we can import courses like from a different semester, from a previous semester into this semester. For example, somebody does, teaches civil procedure, in the spring and the fall and stuff. So instead of entering that information, we can just import that information. Add, delete courses, the same thing here. Okay, we can do the same thing here. This is just maintenance of those courses. And as you can see, we can also do student evaluations, also part of the system. Students can enter their evaluation. Yes.
Is on this screen, do you also add the room scheduling?
Yeah, we'll come to the room scheduling.
Okay.
We do both room scheduling for events, any event, and also we do class scheduling, which merges the courses with the rooms, and that's what I'm going to show you. So this is just the background data that we enter about those. For room scheduling, which is here, first we define what rooms that we have, the general information about those rooms. One thing that we do is that for each room, there is what we call a manager, okay? For example, there are special rooms, like the dean's conference room. Only, that is, people can request, to have an event in that room, but that request goes to the assistant, the administrative assistant, and she either declines or permits that schedule. So each room has who is that manager, and of course there are some managers who have responsibility for different rooms. For example, faculty lounges or faculty conference room is the responsibility of the faculty enrichment office, and so on and so forth. Okay, reservations. This is the where an administrator puts schedules a reservation here. You pick the date. Okay, you say it's here, or you can change the date. Okay, and you get this view. Okay, and this view it shows that it says confirmed reservations in gold background and pending reservations in blue background. So when somebody requests an event to be scheduled, it appears here. And the way it happens, that is, as you can see, that is where you see the plus and minus is the available slots. Okay? And if they want to request something here, they put they get to this screen, okay? And here you have the date, okay? And you can put an ending date, you select the room. Here we select the room 146 was selected because that's what the column I clicked on, okay? And then you select the event type that you are going to have or whatever it is, okay? Event title, okay? And you can click here in the box to say, I want this event to appear on the master calendar once it is scheduled, okay? Or in the public calendar when it is, if that happens, the contact name and other information that is here. And then you put the start time and end time, and if you wanted to repeat, and what days you wanted to repeat. Now, the screen that we started with shows time slots of 15 minutes. But people actually can schedule in 5-minute increments. Okay? And the reason we did that is that 5 minutes gets reserves the 15-minit block, so that we allow time for people to go in and out. That's the only reason for it. So if you schedule something that ends at 8:05, that room is not available until 8:15 for the next event. Okay. Cancellations and conflicts. This is also the same thing. It shows you on that date. Remember, this is an administrator doing this. Okay? Shows you what if there is some kind of conflict, and how do conflicts happen, since it shows there on the screen what is pending and what is not pending, and they can't really click on something that has color on it. The reason it happens is that people can request events, but if the dean wants to schedule a class, okay, that class, okay, takes priority over whatever is scheduled over that room. Okay? So you have, she's not going to go check conflicts for every day on in that semester. So she does that, and the system finds all of those conflicts and emails the contact person, says, your event has been, overridden or whatever it is. Contact us again to the schedule for another in another room. Okay. So that is in general the room schedule. Another thing that we have is out of all of that we generate an events calendar. Okay? And that has all the events that are scheduled on that date. It goes from one date to another. Okay, let's quickly look at the class schedule, which is very similar to the room schedule, except that it does it over a period of time. Okay, so here we already have in the database entered the courses for this semester and we've associated them with the faculty who are going to teach them. Okay, now we want to schedule the course, for example, like this. Then you get something like this, okay, which is notice that the begin date and end date, okay, are automatically entered there, and the reason for that is that we selected the semester, and when we put in the database when the semester begins and when the semester ends. So those dates, of course, they can be overridden, okay, and then you select the room, you select the class type, the start time, the end time, and the repeat and stuff, just like the other. Sorry, I went very fast through this, but the idea here is that after you have your setup done, and courses They go from one semester to another, faculty from one semester to another. The rooms are there, they don't change that much, okay? So our scheduling is very easy to do, okay? And because everything is integrated with each other, we have very little data entry to do. Any questions?
What is the program or application running all these things in the background?
The application is what we develop. Yeah. We use Cold Fusion to develop all of these. Are you familiar with Cold Fusion?
No,
or
I've heard of.
yeah, it's a programming language. It's a scripting language, okay, that you use. What it does, it allows you to very simply, Cold Fusion is a very, very powerful software that allows you to use the browser to access a database on your server.
Similar to PHP or ASP
Yes.
or.
Also, you put the logic and everything, conditions, and to avoid conflicts and everything in the program.
That's right. The thing is that is, you program it, it has many tools, it has very powerful tools, okay? That, you know, that is the actual program that, you know, I used to say, put all of this in a floppy. People don't use floppies nowadays, but you still, these are, you do a script or a template that use different functions that are built in with Cold Fusion that allows you to develop all of these. Cold Fusion started as an e-commerce application used for, you know, you go to Amazon or whatever, you know, to buy something, that's what Cold Fusion. It's a very powerful, I like it, it's easy, it's very easy to learn and to learn.
I just have a comment on the time slot you selected, because you said on an actual event calendar, it will schedule the rooms 15-minute interval. But here you are giving a 5-minute interval for somebody to book. Now give you a scenario where somebody books from 1:20, like it ends at 1:20, but the other prof wants to start at 1:15. Because he took extra 5 minutes, you cannot schedule the whole block for the next 2 hours.
We try to do it that is, you know, 1:15 and then another one starts at 1:15. It caused a lot of problems, okay? And we thought that is because people started going to something that they think they'd start, you know, and then the faculty or whatever event takes a few minutes more and they're waiting there, and then somebody's going out and somebody's going in, okay? So we thought, we found it very useful, okay? From a practical, from a pragmatic way, is that, you know, if you request a 5-minute, okay, the whole 15-minute block will be the same. And that will just fine. Other question? I guess they'll give you our addresses. We're happy to share what we have, either just design or ideas or code or whatever you like. Please contact me and we're happy to share.